Hello, I'm Gus Downing, publisher and editor of the D&D Daily, and this is the LP News Network. We're here today with Tony Donofrio, Chief Customer Officer of Tyco Retail Solutions. Tyco Retail Solutions, part of Johnson Controls, is a leading provider of analytics-based loss prevention, inventory intelligence, and traffic insights for the retail industry. Their solutions deliver real-time visibility and predictive analytics to help retailers maximize business outcomes and enhance the customer experience in a digitally driven shopping world. There are more than 1.5 million data collection devices in the retail marketplace, capture 40 billion shopper visits, and track and protect billions of items each year. Their retail portfolio features the premier Sensormatic, ShopperTrak, and TrueVUE brands, as well as a full suite of building technology solutions. Retail technology investments are digitizing the store, allowing retailers to get closer to shoppers and empower associates to make real-time data-driven decisions. Tyco Retail Solutions is helping retailers create successful moments of truth that drive the greatest retail business outcomes. They have the ability to deliver the most accurate, real-time, actionable, and prescriptive insights to enable the most informed decisions to deliver the greatest business value. As a result, their retail solutions continue to help retailers achieve tremendous operational results, from increased revenues to lower shrink, reduced markdowns, and improved inventory availability to increased conversion rates. Tyco Retail Solutions helps to digitize the stores by bringing together a mix of technologies and solutions to put more power and knowledge into the hands of employees and to engage customers in new ways that help to marry the online and offline experiences, changing the in-store experience and the overall role of the physical store as the connected center of retail. They continue to reinvent loss prevention, traffic insights, and inventory intelligence with their new cloud-based, events-driven, information-rich solutions, many of which are on display here at the NRF Big Show. Tony, welcome.
Thank you very much, and that was quite an introduction, so thank you very much.
You know, as a global retail influencer and futurist, what are the latest retail trends that you're seeing as you travel the globe?
So to me, and NRF is another confirmation that retail is changing. I've heard a lot this year about this retail apocalypse and the end of retail and the end of the world. So I'll comment because it's really lies in terms of how retail has evolved. The way I look at retail, it's gone through three major mega trends, driven mainly by the United States since the 1950s, and those have been driven by technology. Prior to the 1970s, really the manufacturers were in charge of retail because they had optimized supply chains. That all changed in the middle 70s with the barcode, 1974 to be exact, when a pack of Wrigley chewing gum was scanned in Troy, Ohio. That changed retail dramatically because now retailers had the information in their hands to actually start driving. And if you look back at the history of Walmart, that's when they exploded as a global retailer. So that was a major turning point with retailers because they had the information, took over the channel.
From the manufacturer.
From the manufacturer.
With the barcode.
With the barcode.
So that was step one.
That was from step one to step two. Step three was about 10 years ago, and we're in the middle of it now, and that's the consumer taking over now. The consumer is now really in charge of retail. Retailers may not like to hear that, but the consumer is really in charge, and they've been in charge ever since Steve Jobs released that smartphone or the iPhone. That iPhone became the window to shopping, and that is dramatically changing how consumers interact with stores. So we're in the middle of this transition that started in the United States. What's interesting, and you asked me about the global trends, is that transition is really accelerating now in other parts of the world. If you look at China, for example, in China there are 500 million people already shopping on mobile phones, where we see this as an emerging trend in this part of the world. So this digitization that the smart kicked off is really changing how retail evolves and is really putting the consumer at the center of the shopping experience.
You know, how are those trends impacting the way technology providers are reacting to the retail disruption?
To me, it's all about the consumer today. It's really figuring out how you take technology and how you personalize to that consumer. The future of retail is about branding and immersive customer experience. Those immersive customer experiences increasingly have to be digital. You have to be able to communicate to a consumer in all kinds of ways and reach them anywhere, from inside their home, to inside their car, to when they're watching television, to when they're standing on a subway platform. There's all kinds of ways now where digitally, through new technologies, you're able to reach the consumers. And that trend is going to continue. And again, the examples that I see are in other parts of the world where they're ahead of some of these. So for example, in the United States, Amazon Go came out last December as this great kind of new self-checkout stores, which by the way is still not open, but that was the future of retail.
Right.
If you go to China today, there's 1,000 Amazon Go's already open. There's already autonomous stores, some of which are actually on wheels. Right now, for example, they're rolling out these bingo boxes, which are convenience stores on wheels, that you walk into that store with a smartphone, you check yourself out with a smartphone, and loss prevention, it's actually, there's remote monitoring of the transaction, there's RFID inside those stores, so there's all these advanced technologies. So digitization is really changing around the world, and to me, what's interesting is some of the emerging markets, which we're calling new markets, are actually stepping to those new generations faster and adopting some of these technologies much, much faster.
How is the trends on that from a standpoint of the shrinkage and is anything out yet as a result of that trend out in Asia?
So shrink is not going to go away. Shrink is a problem that's been around since the beginning of history, and there used to be all kinds of ways to take care of that that we don't want to discuss some of those.
Not the old school.
Not the old school. But shrink has been a problem in retail forever, since the beginning of time. What is happening now is digitization is also moving in the loss prevention function in terms of increasing deterrence, increasing detection, and actually using technology to actually attack the problem. And it's a combination of data and visual, and that data and visual analytics coming together, and that's being adapted worldwide. So for example, in those autonomous stores, it's really understanding buyer behavior, how they're engaging with products, actually visually doing a verification that they actually pay for those products that they're walking out from. That's all done with a video camera using the image recognition and being able to do those types of technology. That's how it's changing.
Do you see that from a facial recognition standpoint in Asia? I mean, are they really going that fast to use that technology and such?
I think facial recognition is going to happen. I think Apple, with their new phone, is going to speed that up, the new iPhone X, because that is your way to get into the phone. Right. It's going to make it a common technology where everyone will accept. Ultimately, to me, all of these technologies do have challenges. The facial recognition, for example, from my privacy, and really you got to reach that balance. When does a consumer really allow you to come in and intrude on their privacy? And really that's an equation, a value equation. How much value are you going to bring to me as a consumer that I'm willing to give up some of my privacy to let you in? Facial recognition to me is going to fall into that. There's already a ton of facial recognition already in airports, security, so that is happening already. How it gets into the consumer space, I think retailers will control that on a go-forward basis.
Also the regulators, the government, in how they handle it themselves with standards and regulations, data collection, storage, and so on. And they really haven't done any of that yet.
They have not, and I think part of the challenge that actually the government has to catch up. The space of technology change is actually, some governments are not keeping up in terms of how the evolution is taking place. But I do think those regulations will come. We'll get to a balance. But the balance will be a value equation. And the consumer will really dictate how much of my privacy you can have for the value that you deliver to me as a consumer.
Do you think that the United States is going to adapt to the new European standards that are being rolled out this year?
So the European standards are very aggressive. I do think some of that will come to the United States. And even in Europe, if you go to a place like Italy, for example, just taking a picture of somebody on a sidewalk is actually against the law. So there are different kind of variations. I think the United States will adopt some of that, because I do think, again, we'll get to that balance. So it will come here. At what level, it will depend on how the pace of the technology adoption and whether we don't have a lot of disruption in that process.
And we're kind of training the consumer right now getting back to that Apple phone process and such. And they're getting away from the signature for purchases and fingerprints and so on. So we're kind of training the consumer now, are we not?
We are, and social media is actually speeding that up. So if you look at social media, it's all about posting pictures, posting images, sharing where you're at, sharing your experiences. I just saw an app, for example, where Sephora, where you can upload your picture and have makeup put on your face and actually do all kinds of things virtually. And that is an immersive shopping experience, but that actually is taking your face and you're giving it to Sephora.
Right.
So that's technology really, but for the value that I get, I actually get to see what that product is going to look like on me before I spend the money.
You know, it's kind of unique that LP, loss prevention, are the ones that drove the CCTV world into the retailer and how they kind of led that effort, and now everybody else is kind of jumping on board of it. So it's kind of just an interesting thing to point out for some of the young viewers.
Funny you should say it, because I do a global presentation that I call the Disruptive Future of Retail, and one of the slides that I always include is how loss prevention really created the future of retail. They just didn't know it. If you look at EAS, it really was on the first item level technology and solutions. Migrated to RFID, it got smarter. If you look at video, it was invented to stop theft and do all those things, but now it's become a data gathering device. So the foundational technologies started the loss prevention. They're now evolving. They're continuing to evolve. What's nice to me, being part of Tyco Retail Solutions, is that I'm seeing those same technologies now coming back and adding a lot of value to the loss prevention, the future loss prevention technologies going forward.
You know, what new innovations is Tyco Retail Solutions bringing to the market?
Well, you actually mentioned some of them in your introduction. So what we are seeing is that just like traditional retail, there's a lot more integration taking place. There's a much more acceptance of the cloud than putting information into the clouds. So all of our solutions are either in the cloud or moving to the cloud. We are focused on 3 different platforms for the solutions. One is ShopperTrak, and that actually was a combination of ShopperTrak and Footfall, 2 large companies. That brand basically looks at customer conversions of people coming into the store. It tracks 40 billion shopper visits a year around the world. So that shopper intelligence is what we're focused on to keep you value adding. And one of the things we're releasing here, for example, is a global shopper index, telling you how you're doing versus your peers, versus your area, those types of activities. So that's ShopperTrak. In the TrueVUE, in the RFID space, there's a lot of also going into cloud-based, doing a lot more intelligence in terms of within the stores, in the fitting rooms, adding those types of intelligence. And then in the loss prevention, it's also going to the cloud. It's getting connected. It's about creating data. It's about creating smarter tags that feed that cloud to make loss prevention much more smarter and optimized on a go-forward basis.
Exciting. You know, do you have some new solutions itself for the Tyco retail portfolio as well, I believe?
Yes, we do. Some of them are the cloud-based solutions. We have some brand new tags, and the tags are evolving. They started out as pure EAS labels, and then the tags then became EAS and RFID, pure RFID. You'll start seeing more and more technology being embedded into the tag itself, and the tag then delivering intelligence within the stores. We're actually showing some of that at the NRF right now. But this data and we're actually following the same digitization trend that is happening in the rest of retail into loss prevention. And in fact, in a lot of ways, we're leading it.
Yeah. What's new solution most excites you for 2018?
Well, there's actually a couple. And the 2 to me that excite me the most are, some of them are actually going back to basic. One of them is, of all things, source tagging. So source tagging has been around forever. Some of the folks that have been on this panel have actually been the founders of it. Yeah. And you would think that's an industry, well, it's yesterday. But I can tell you, for us, it's grown the last 7 years in a row. And it continues to grow and explode. But that's because we didn't stand still. One of the things that excites me this year, we reinvented source tagging into a service model, where we actually deliver the entire portfolio to the retailer, to a service model, a lot more data analytics, a lot more data. And what we see now with the adoption of the retailers, anywhere from a 3 to 5% sales increase and a 20% shrink reduction by this much more aggressive, data-driven service model. Because if you look at retail, It's also taking labor out of the store. It's actually saying, how can you help me? And the service model to me is extremely exciting. At this show, we're taking it to the next level. So we did it at the sensor level with and by the way, it's not just EAS, it's also with RFID. And we're doing this for labels. We're also doing it with tags. So just for in EAS RFID tags, we shipped already over 2 billion of those dual technology tags. It gives you an idea of the scale and the volume. So source tagging as a service excites me. The other one is what we're calling shrink management as a service. So we're taking, again, the traditional loss prevention solutions, putting them in the cloud, getting connected, adding a lot more intelligence, both our own system intelligence, so for example, EAS, getting it connected, getting smarter, monitoring exits, increasing the turns at the exit, using technology, not necessarily people, and that's really a start of a journey of a much more integrated, smarter solution on a go forward. So to me, this whole service model of being to provide retailers a program as opposed to just a technology is really where retail is headed, and for our perspective is what excites me for 2018.
Yeah, certainly, certainly. Tony, thank you for being here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, that's it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to thank you for watching. And until next time, let's keep them all safe out there.